What if one of the most powerful leaders in the world was slowly pulled into a conflict he never planned to fight? For years, Donald Trump promised American voters something very clear: no more endless wars in the Middle East. But critics argue that the strategic decisions of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu may have placed Trump in an increasingly difficult position, one that could draw the United States deeper into regional tensions with Iran. So what really happened? And did Netanyahu's strategy leave Trump with fewer options than he realized? This is the Curiosity Lab. To understand the situation, we need to start with the relationship between the United States and Israel. For decades, the U.S. has been Israel's closest ally, providing military support, intelligence cooperation, and diplomatic protection on the global stage. When Trump entered the White House in 2017, that relationship grew even stronger. His administration made several historic decisions, recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, moving the U.S. embassy there, supporting Israel's security policies more openly than previous administrations. For Netanyahu, this was a political victory, but it also meant that the U.S. and Israel became more closely linked than ever before. At the same time, tensions with Iran were rising rapidly. The Trump administration withdrew from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, arguing that the agreement did not do enough to stop Iran's nuclear ambitions. Netanyahu strongly supported this move. For years, he had warned that Iran represented the greatest strategic threat to Israel's security. But leaving the deal also triggered a chain reaction: economic sanctions on Iran intensified. Military tensions increased across the region. Iran began expanding its nuclear activities again. Suddenly, the Middle East was entering a new phase of instability. And Washington was now deeply involved. Some analysts argue that Netanyahu pursued a strategy designed to isolate Iran as much as possible. This included diplomatic pressure, military operations targeting Iranian influence in the region, strong lobbying in Washington for a tougher stance. The idea was simple: if Iran became isolated enough, its power in the region would weaken. But there was also a risk. The more pressure that was applied, the more likely Iran might retaliate. And if that happened, the United States could be forced to respond. This created a difficult dilemma for Trump. On one hand, he wanted to maintain strong support for Israel. On the other, he had promised American voters he would avoid new wars. Those two goals were not always easy to balance. Every escalation in the region raised the same question: would the United States stay on the sidelines, or be drawn into a larger conflict? Some critics argue that Netanyahu understood this dynamic very well. By escalating pressure on Iran, they say, the U.S. would eventually have little choice but to get involved. But others reject that idea completely. They argue that the U.S. was always making its own independent strategic decisions. After all, American foreign policy is influenced by many factors: national security interests, domestic politics, global alliances, energy markets. In reality, the relationship between Washington and Jerusalem is far more complex than a simple trap. Both countries pursue their own goals, even when those goals overlap. So did Netanyahu trap Trump? Or was this simply the result of a long and complicated alliance navigating a dangerous region? The truth likely lies somewhere in between. But one thing is certain: the decisions made during this period continue to shape the balance of power in the Middle East today. And the consequences may be felt for years to come. If you want deeper explanations of the world's most complex geopolitical stories, subscribe to the Curiosity Lab. Because sometimes, the most important stories are the ones happening behind the scenes.